Hi everyone, this is Michał. Welcome to Lingaro's Design Insightful Power BI Dashboards webinar, in which you will learn a few valuable but not too hard tips and tricks to make your business dashboards be better for the end users, which in the end will transfer to better decisions, better business decisions, and let's say less money or less time consumed on analyzing the data. What we will talk about in this webinar. First of all, a few words about Lingaro's UX team. Then we will get to key principles in designing for data and why they are important. For this, we will analyze a eye tracking research that we did on some business dashboards. Then we will start a part of the webinar where I talk specifically about let's say 10 important steps in how to improve your dashboards. So we will talk about branding and style guides, type of charts, backgrounds, icons, content hierarchy, and colors, and in the end, a few words about navigating between the reports. So who we are. We are a team of business analysts, UX experts, UI designers, and developers. Basically, the process goes like this. Business analysts talk to the owners of the solution, which is being prepared or designed, and they come up with the basic assumptions or requirements that will need to be met by the business dashboard. Then UX people take care of the end user reception of the solution, and they initially design how the dashboards will look like. And the way things are displayed on a dashboard is then improved by the user interface designers. And in the end, the developers make it happen. What I spoke right now is about kind of like a waterfall thing, but it's not usually like this because we cooperate closely. It does not mean that when the business analysts start working, the developers have nothing to say or don't know about the project. No, it's actually the opposite. Usually, there is a member of each team involved in each stage of a specific project. So while you read the slide, this one, what I can say is in a few words, I can sum it up that Lingaro is a company that combines startup flexibility and, let's say, innovative spirit with big companies' scale and reliability. Apart from working on Power BI dashboards and basically analyzing complex business data, not only Power BI actually, Tableau, Qlik, and Domo as well, we also provide wide range of services. So we also design enterprise software, mobile apps, SharePoint portals. We can also consult and train people in UX. So now, key principles in designing for data. First of all, in most of the projects, people tend to focus on the data first, how to connect the data, how to access the data. Not so much on the perspective of the audience, which I believe should go in the first place. So what we do is first start designing with our audience in mind, so who they are, and it's not always like one report, one audience. There can be several people watching the same report with different perspectives. For example, top-level managers, salespeople. Then, what is the business challenge you're trying to solve? I used to say that those reports are mainly for people to take decision where to send the rewards, because people, salespeople, somebody else did the job great, and where to send your audit, so because something is wrong. And of course, there are different challenges. You need to talk to the users or the business who will need this, who will be actually using this, and what users want to do with the data. Also, like, do they want to compare it? Do they want to see if somebody made the target or not? These are very important questions. Then define the paths. What kind of first screen, second screen, usually or third one, what kind of steps are taking during normal interaction with a specific dashboard? Also, it differs between the types of users, so we must not forget that. Then we need to think about the structure of the report. It corresponds to the fourth point. And then, of course, make it easy to find what the users need first. I will mention it later, but I can say at this point that, for example, there are certain KPIs which simply are a type of like yes or no. Is the target met? Yes or no? Is this month better than the previous one? And when top people look at this, that's all they need, and then they start acting based on the knowledge. So how do we achieve good practice and in the field of these principles? First of all, participatory design, which is a way of designing first with the users in place. So instead of going to the, let's say, software people or people who are responsible for the databases and connecting those databases, you need to go to the people who will actually read the report and do some exercise with them. And you can actually do it even with a simple PowerPoint. So you can ask them to draw on paper, or using our template, you can do it on PowerPoint, a simple report. And simple reports can be done like this. So insert, chart, and then, for example, you want to see the comparison of sales in specific, let's say, quarters or categories. And there you go. You can also play with the data a little bit. So that's an important step, which is quite easy to do, but you can make it even easier. You can simply omit the whole chart type. Is it a bar chart, insert, or data part from this exercise? You can simply draw some squares and write down what you want to see, or actually your business users will need to do it. This step saves lots of money because when users sign off, let's say, the design, and they simply know what they want, they have first remarks, there is no development involved in this. There is no, let's say, financial or budget commitment from the IT perspective. All you need to do is put people in one place and either design a more sophisticated thing like this. So we have some KPIs, we have some charts, or you can then simply end up with this, and this, though it may look quite simple, is kind of a milestone in the project, because it lays the foundation for further steps. They're not taking in the wrong direction. We cooperated with companies that created these in Excel, but we think that PowerPoint is actually a little bit better tool to do this. Also, remember about your information hierarchy. So, of course, let the people decide what they want to see on the screen, but remember that information needs to have a special certain order. It's good to have title on top. It's good to have filters on top, especially if they influence what is displayed down below. Then you have KPIs or key information, and then you get to the visualizations and some tables with details. I think a good word to describe it is like take storytelling approach. So this is your company looking from the helicopter perspective, and then you drill down to the lower level. So the main purpose of business intelligence is to quickly present the value of key measures. So the key information needs to be immediately visible, and sometimes you need to, some simple ways of doing it is use lists instead of drop downs or labels instead of tooltips. We saw many reports where those labels were hidden by default because there was no time to, let's say, play around with the way things look for the end users, which I believe is wrong. And simply putting the label in front of the user instead of making the user do some action to display it really shortened the time needed to see some key data, like fivefold. That's what we had, for example, what we noticed in the eye tracking studies, which I will cover later. Also, it is worth mentioning that some standards are required for the better readability of the data. Like, for example, numbers should be aligned to the right or by the decimal point and not, let's say, to the left, like words are. It's good to define the rules up front so the development team knows them beforehand. They don't have to make the rules up or make them up and then forget them when they move to a different tab. Another important point is, for example, have a layout structure. Like sometimes people, they have this shock when they move from their private environment, which is websites, nice mobile apps, things that are good, that meet the eye, and then they move to the work environment, which is, I would say, I don't know, designed in the 90s when the top benchmarks were designed even in the 80s. So there is a possibility to put a logo on your report and put a name and put a title bar, and then layout also uh, involves placing KPIs on top, filters. When you have this template, it's good for most of, for example, tabs in your report, and it's better to have it instead of making something up from zero on each tab. And now some scientific proof of this. Some time ago, we found a few reports that were publicly available on the net, and we redesigned them simply with those rules I mentioned before in mind. And for example, this is a report which tells exactly the same data, but after our redesign. Then we took outside agency to run a research, an eye tracking research. They invited 11 users and each user was given a task. For example, find out which company has the biggest number of uploads. And their eye movements were recorded, and based on those recordings, the overall notes were given to each of the design. For example, here we have a heat map and of points where on average people were looking more often. The more red a point is, an area is, the more often people looked at this specific area. And with this task in mind, which I mentioned earlier, so what's the company with the biggest number of uploads, we can see that, for example, on this before layout, a lot of users looked into this area. And if I move to the previous slide, what kind of information is hiding in those slices? I would say it's zero, because you cannot compare. It's just a colorful place which have drawn people's attention, but it contains very little or no info regarding completion of the task. How many people have looked into the actual place which contains the answer compared to the number here? Not too many. And here, people were looking right at the spot where the answer was given. So first of all, they read the task, then they read the header of this section, and they proceeded simply to the place where the answer was. In some cases, the time was reduced from about 25 to 5 seconds, which is a big difference. Another exercise, can you please tell me what is the sum of units sold? And the left-hand report was the one that we got, and the right-hand one was modified by us. This shows the value of, for example, contrast, white space around a specific KPI, the size of the font. And again, I can say that this was one of the tasks where the difference was the biggest. To sum it up, why is following the principles in designing for data important? First of all, you have simply a time cost of bad design. As I mentioned, shortening a specific task from 25 seconds to 5 seconds, you get 20 seconds of your company's time. And you multiply it by the number of employees that have to do it, and you multiply it by the number of days they have to do it, and number per day they have to do it. You get a pure time saving in simply people staring at the screen to get the data. But there are other costs. For example, bad design needs training, needs more training for people to get used to using it simply. And in many companies, you have to have special training departments to simply make people work on a specific design. Then you have the cost of failed or missed opportunities based on decisions on the design. It's not that always people will understand the connection between specific data and that they will analyze further, for example, what's going on in this specific country or in this specific region that makes the data different from other regions. Sometimes it will take them not 1 hour to find out that there's something wrong, but it will take them 2 days because of bad design. And 2 days sometimes might be too much, and it might be too late to get some preventive measures to change something in a specific region. And there's also users' energy factor. Sometimes simply you go to work and you know that you will do things that make you tired even before you start doing that. That's thanks to bad design. And that is unmeasurable, but it transfers into things like your employees' loyalty productivity, happiness, your ability to hire better people, because better people go to better places, and better places are the places where you have better designed interfaces. So lots of things that you can measure, but also lots of things that are not so easy to measure, but you can predict that bad or good design of analytics tools has great influence on this. So now, once you are convinced, I hope, and I really admire radio speakers who can talk for a longer time. Give me a moment. Next part of the webinar. So 10 steps with examples to redesign your dashboards. So first of all, we spoke about creating a style guide for the report. As you can see, it is not hard. For example, even if you don't have a visual department with a style guide ready at hand with your primary colors or secondary colors, you can make the colors simply from your company's website. You can take the dominating colors, and then based on those colors, you can design a background for your report using here, for example, if you're Facebook or President Obama, you can use his Facebook profile and take the blue, take the gray. And then, as I mentioned before, those squares with text that will display what your business users or your analysts want to see in a specific tab. But of course, professional style guide, as shown here, you can see it in one of the projects we did. Consists of more colors. There are some tones and also fonts. You can put it straight into your Power BI report, and if you have newer version of Power BI, in the View tab it looks like this, and there are some predefined themes, or you can customize the theme with your own company's colors. If you have older version of Power BI, you can see it in the ribbon in Switch Theme button. Sometimes you might not see it, especially in the older version. And it's like this because in the older versions, you need to, well, I could see it in my Power BI, but sometimes you need to go to File, Options and Settings, Options. Then in the Preview Features element of menu, you will see this allowing customizing the current theme. So you can either play around with the existing predefined themes, which even have nice names like City Park, Classroom, or you can take the one, for example, by default and play around with the colors a little bit. Especially interesting are the sentiment colors, which can show negative, positive, or neutral values for your KPIs, for example. Here, if we don't like this blue, we can change it easily to dark green and apply. There we go. Now, let's talk about types of visualizations. And it will come back a few times during this webinar. So you can choose pie charts if you have some, I don't know, 4 values, 3 values to compare. But if you have more than 4, usually it's better to have bar charts. Line charts are better for visualizing an event which occurs during time. If you need to decide if I'm not sure what kind of visualization is better for your report, you can go to this URL where you can see some help with choosing the right type of visualization. It also should contain some knowledge about each type of visualization. There are actually very interesting facts about way things are visualized. So, as I mentioned before, let's be careful with the pie charts. For example, here a company is trying to compare quarter by quarter sales from 2019 and 2020. And if you simply try to not pay attention to the left-hand side, but to the right-hand side, all right, this blue is a bit bigger than that blue, but what about the yellow part, the third quarter of 2019 and 2020? It's not so easy to compare anymore. And if we go to the left-hand part of the slide, where we have a bar chart, we can simply see that the third quarter in 2020 was a bit worse than in 2019. So Power BI exercise now. Let's transform this pie chart into a nice bar chart. First of all, we insert a new visual. Then we choose the type, cluster bar chart. Then we take the data. So we want to compare quarters and 2019 and 2020, 18 and 19. There we go. Same information. We needed only one tile to have it instead of two tiles, and it's now comparable. Of course, please notice that the colors have adjusted to the theme we have chosen. Then we will talk a little bit about the background. As I mentioned before, it is good to have your company tools resemble a little bit the private time tools, or at least stand up to them in terms of quality or visual appearance. We can easily put a background in our report, which must be, of course, prepared beforehand with some visual design tool like Adobe. How can we do it? We have created a few backgrounds beforehand. So once we are on the tab, we go to the visualizations formatting tool and we pick a wallpaper and we simply add an image. And here we have a background with place for filters. But there is a catch. The newer version of Power BI does not display by default that we have the wallpaper we have uploaded. Maybe it will improve. We need to go to page background and set it transparent. And we have our background. So make sure if you don't see it, it's either the transparency of page background or the transparency of wallpaper is set to 100%. In older version, it was the latter case. Now, other assets of your report. Icons are best for visually organizing your report and making it better for the user to browse. So again, you're saving users time and you're saving companies money on analyzing the data. Reading numbers or a chart which is full of numbers and bars to compare is one of the most energy consuming activities of the brain. So if we put some visual relief, also acting as an indicator, then it will be much better for the users to take the right decisions and consume less energy on analyzing the data. So here we have an example of one of those interfaces that we analyzed using eye tracking report. Here's the older version, which did not work so perfectly. And what we can do with this? KPIs are usually important, especially for the top-level management. So first of all, we can transform those KPIs with simply a label and the number and the dollar sign in front into tiles, make them more visually stand out, and we can add an icon. This looks much better and it's much better to read for the user than the previous pale version. How can we do it in Power BI? Let's jump back to the software. So let me copy it and paste. First, we will need some background. And it's always good to have the selection panel on, because then you can move things and see how each other is in relation to another. And then we can format the shape. So we can first of all remove the line. There we have it. And then we can upload the icon as an image. And it's one of the previous one. Let's have this one again. Here we go. Simply resizing. Again, as simple as that. Visual designers will probably focus on the distance between the icon and the borders of your area, of your tile. We can also insert a text box here, or we can put a label or the title. And then we just simply make it a little bit bigger so it's noticeable, and in the middle. Please make sure that you don't lose anything while you put more elements into your display, because sometimes you need to make things a little bit larger. And we do not have influence on the distance in an easy way, on the distance between the title and the data itself. So what we can do as a workaround is simply put a text field above. So if this is a separate text field, then this one I can move around. Of course, first of all, I need to make it on top of, put it on top of other elements. And here we go, we just transformed a hard to find, hard to read number, which will hide among other numbers. We made it stand out. We made a visual distinction, which our brain can process subconsciously, even without us having to spend too much energy and be aware that we are actually looking for this. When I think about dollars, it's a very common sign. So, positioning of filters. If filters influence the entire area of your chart, then you will need to put them either on top or on the side. When a specific filter is connected with a specific tile, it's better to put it on the tile itself. I can show you a little tip, because we can also play around and make the report look more like a website again by using hamburger style filters, which will hide when you click a button. So to Power BI again, and we prepared this version. You can see you have some sales by quarter compared 2018 to 2019, and when you click the icon, you can filter out quarter and hide the filters back again. How to do it? We will do it by using bookmarks. A bookmark is simply a view of a specific page frozen in time, let's say, something that you want to go back to. So let me remove previously created bookmarks. And by the way, if you don't see it, everything is in the view menu, filters, bookmarks, selections. So first, let's create something like this in a simple way. So I'm putting an oval, which will be my switch, and then a thing that we will agree that is my filter panel. And right, let's get back one step. I will delete it. So this is the state that I want to save as a bookmark 1 or bookmark 3, let's say. Then I'm adding shapes. I'm adding my filters and text box with a small title. Right, I cannot stand this. As a designer, I always look at the font when it's too small. I have to make it larger and more readable for the users. Let's forget background for a moment, and let's put another oval to hide our filters. Okay, it will be an X in a final version, let's say. So this view is our second version of the screen. So I'm adding a bookmark here. And now what I need to do is to have an action on this, to save an action on this button. So first of all, this action, when we click on it, it will be a bookmark and it will move me to the bookmark form. And when I click this one, I will implement an action to put it to bookmark 3. Sometimes it does not work for the first time. So let me quickly see if I can hide it. Yeah, as you can see. And again, maybe I will need to hide this shape and this one as well. And then we are in bookmark 3, so we need to update it. And let's have a look. Bookmark 4. We clicked, it moved us to bookmark 4. And we clicked, and it moved us to bookmark 3. As simple as that. So now naming the charts. We notice that it's often forgotten to put a title on top of each tile, while the eye tracking study showed that people really find this feature like game changer for doing specific tasks on their dashboards. As you can see here, many people looked at they got the task uploads. It is also important to repeat some keywords that are in your users' heads. How do you extract keywords that are hidden in your users' heads? As a UX designer or consultant, I can tell you only one thing: talk to your users. They will tell you what, maybe not directly. If you ask them, hey, what should be there on this interface? They will start to get creative. But when you listen to them, when you listen to their language, to the words they use, you will learn that some words do repeat. And these are the words that you will need to put in your interface. So change the interface with small titles by default. Power BI is very good at suggesting very small font, by the way. change it to bigger font. Again, you don't do much, but you save a lot of money and time, and you increase the chance of your company making better decisions. So how simple is that in Power BI? Pretty simple. Here we have a tile with sales by quarter with a title and without one. So what we want to do is go to the format menu and turn on the title. Power BI suggests a small title. So what we want to do is to edit this a little bit. 20 pixels or 24 with a different color. How do we adjust the position of the title? I use left mostly, but it depends on what you decide upon creating your style guide. It can be centered as well, right? Font color, why not? And then KPIs and tiles arrangement. As I mentioned before, KPIs are pretty important to people who usually have the least amount of time to spend on data analysis. That's why they need to be really visually distinguished from the rest of your report. So if you have a report that is like this, it is done correctly, but it can be done much better. Why not move the KPI section to the top? Why not have this small chart? Actually, you can put in each of those KPI tiles, you can put a small trend chart. So this can be your final value, but the user can see the trend right away, even without the numbers, the labels, all the surroundings. It's not an icon. It's like an icon, but it's more than an icon. And then make it stand out by adding some color. Ta-da! As easy as that. And with the colors, basically the consistency is very important. You must make sure that design language and color schemes are consistent. Also, your model needs to be consistent, because once you have your theme done in a proper way and you use the similar dimensions in your visualizations, Power BI will know how to make the colors consistent. If you use different, let's say, different way of displaying it. For example, here the data is displayed as a legend, the quarter, and here it's as axis. Legend tells Power BI to simply go through the data one by one and display its value. If you put some specific data in the axis field, then Power BI will try to order it on an axis. There is to Power BI, it's a difference. So the colors are chosen differently by Power BI. If it has to be done like this, if you cannot do it in a similar way, so use axis or legend in both tiles, then you will need to simply manually edit the colors here. So you need to copy the ones. If you can do it, then the data will be colored in a consistent way. And of course, you can change them using theme. So KPIs we already covered. Then the final decision point, let's say, sometimes the audiences are interested in so different things in your report, but there is no need for the reports for specific groups of your users to overlap. So you might want to put a landing page, and a landing page is a bit similar to the bookmark mechanism that we covered earlier. It's just the work is a little bit different. So if you have a tile which will send you somewhere, let me choose the one. Yeah, there's action only on one of them. So here you, instead of choosing a bookmark, you choose a page navigation, and you tell Power BI to which tab once the user clicks, he or she will be sent. If you have some more advanced tools, you can try to put some data up front, for example, alerts. And here I could, for example, name this, I don't know, sales share, sales grow. And here I can say country by regions. So if you have some more advanced tools, you can, for example, put alerts in this section or something that will indicate that the data is out of the allowed boundaries. So it means that you need to send the auditors somewhere and make sure everything's done right. But it's more advanced. Sometimes you just need to put a landing page for people, for different people to have a look at your report. And basically, this covers the tips and tricks part. Right now, it's time to ask you questions.